Jesus Christ to marry Asian goddess as East-West secret societies agree to save planet. Posted on benjaminfulford.net. By Benjamin Fulford. For the first time in history, Eastern and Western secret societies have agreed to work together for the benefit of the planet, secret society sources say. As one Western secret society source put it, Jesus Christ is going to get married to Guanyin, the Buddhist goddess of mercy. The result is that unlimited funding is going to be made available to fund projects to help the living creatures of this planet, human and otherwise, the sources say. However, since we are entering historically uncharted waters, it will probably take a few months before the actual work can begin, the sources say. At present there are several competing plans being presented at the highest levels of world power. The Vatican and the P2 Freemasons want to make funds available to existing nation-states through selected individuals, P2 sources say. The Chinese have already started their work through their One Belt One Road program. The White Hats in the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex are promoting their Nizara and Gesara global currency reset ideas. Enough money is theoretically available for all of these projects to go ahead simultaneously. However, there is agreement that any release of funds will have to be firmly connected to reality and real-world projects if we are to avoid hyperinflation or asset inflation, as we have under the current system. The White Dragon Society has also put forward proposals that have been given initial approval by both Eastern and Western secret societies, WD's sources say. The WD's proposal is as follows: the creation of at least 2 competing future planning agencies. Each would have a governing board of 7 people selected from 7 regions: China, East Asia excluding China, Europe including Russia, the Muslim world, India, Africa, and the Americas. All decisions would be reached by majority vote and vetoes would be limited to individual regions. Proposed headquarter locations for the Western Agency are Winnipeg, Canada, the exact geographical center of North America, and Buenos Aires, Argentina, the Pope's home. For Asia, Nara, Japan, Laos, and Singapore are being proposed. Negotiations are ongoing and no final decision has been reached. However, it has been confirmed that over $200 billion in gold-backed funds will be available to start the agency as soon as the appropriate legal documents are prepared, BIS sources say. While this is all good news, fighting to subdue the remaining Hazarian Satanists continues in the US, the EU, Israel, and Japan. In the US, according to Pentagon sources, the Democratic Party fell for a trap when they were baited to commit midterm election vote fraud, which will lead to their prosecutions as FISA declassification will take down the House. In other words, the elections in Florida, Arizona, and elsewhere were carefully monitored, and evidence of election theft was gathered in order to round up more Hazarian mafia criminals, CIA sources say. Also, the midterm elections purged the U.S. Senate of anti-Trump Republicans and gave the Trump government real control. This means judges and prosecutors can now be appointed to carry out the long-awaited arrests, the sources say. Attorney General Jeff Sessions passing the baton to Chief of Staff Matt Whitaker opens the pain phase, with indictments unsealed and mass arrests, the sources confirm. Furthermore, they continue, when top Democrats in the House are busted, special elections will be held which may return the House to GOP control. The other notable event in the U.S. last week was Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg falling in her office and breaking 3 ribs. CIA sources are saying she was expected to resign from the Supreme Court in January. This would give the military-backed Trump government a 9-3 majority in the Supreme Court, Pentagon sources noted. Trump is also looking likely to remove Rothschild agent and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in January as well, according to news reports. In addition to this, the investigation that led to the arrests of Goldman Sachs executives in a scandal involving the looting of money from a Malaysian state fund appears to be zeroing in on former CEO Lloyd Blankfein. There is plenty of evidence that the Hazarians set off wildfires in California and staged yet another mass shooting incident there to try to get federal funds and distract public attention from the election thefts, the Pentagon sources say. However, a kamikaze or divine wind burned down the homes of Hollywood elites, celebrities, and liberals in Malibu, the sources note. It is interesting that a fire destroyed the set of the HBO series Westworld near Los Angeles. Since the second season of that series was a flop, if I were an insurance company agent, I would investigate that fire carefully. The Hazarian mafia is feeling the heat in Europe too these days. In particular, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has announced her resignation as party chief on December. Even though the resignation is only supposed to be as party chief, CIA sources say she will also resign as chancellor. This means French Rothschild slave President Emmanuel Macron is the last big Hazarian leader standing in Europe. Last week Macron told a European radio station, "We have to protect ourselves with respect to China, Russia, and even the US." This call, which Trump labeled as very insulting, was probably an admission that China, Russia, and the US were all attacking the Hazarian mafia and their EU dictatorship. The Hazarians were also yet again trying to start World War III in order to escape the ongoing purge. As former CIA agent Robert David Steele put it, the deep state owns the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and two of the deep state's top servants, Secretary General of NATO Jens Stoltenberg, Norway, and Supreme Allied Commander Europe General Curtis Scaparrotti, USA, have in my speculative view, planned the exercise Trident Juncture, TRJ-18, in such a way as to make possible a first strike against Russia after a NATO Gladio false flag operation takes place, with one and perhaps more simulated Russian attacks manufactured as a casus belli. In Israel, meanwhile, the ongoing campaign to remove Satanist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took another step forward as police recommended indicting several of his associates in a bribery scandal involving Israel's purchase of submarines from Germany. These submarines have mostly been sunk by the U.S. military because they were used in attempts to start World War III by firing off nuclear missiles and blaming them on other countries like North Korea and Iran, Pentagon and CIA sources say. The German-built Israeli submarines were also involved in the March 11, 2011 nuclear and tsunami terror attack against Japan, according to Japanese military intelligence. You can bet Netanyahu's associates are being offered plea bargaining deals in order to expose and dethrone the mass-murdering Netanyahu. In Asia as well, Hazarian rule continues to be dismantled. Manchu royal family sources say South Korea is not going to exist as an independent state much longer. It will be merged with North Korea and maybe also with Manchuria, one royal family source says. The U.S. military will be allied with the new unified state, he says. In Japan, meanwhile, a new party aimed at restoring samurai rule formally announced its formation on November 11, 2018, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. The Japanese were among the victors of World War I but were largely snubbed at the Treaty of Versailles negotiations and further alienated when the League of Nations snubbed their proposal to forbid racial and religious discrimination. This time, the agreement between Eastern and Western secret societies has rectified this historical injustice, according to secret society sources. The Japanese military and underworld sent senior representatives to the founding event, staged at the Meiji Kinnan-kan. AWD's representative was there as well. This is a place of historical significance to the Japanese, since it is where the drafts of the former Imperial Constitution and Imperial House Act were discussed in the presence of the Meiji Emperor. The installation of a new emperor in Japan next year will mark the end of secret colonial rule in that country and the beginning of a new era, Japanese right-wing sources say. As a part of this, the Bank of Japan will be nationalized, they say. If we recall that Trump said in October that the Federal Reserve Board was his biggest threat, we can see the US military and the Japanese right-wingers both are moving towards taking control of the privately owned central banks. Thanks for listening and watching. Activate the notification bell. Subscribe to the YouTube channel UFOs WLG, and share.